I never really talked to anyone. My confidence was taking a dive when I reached that point with the hair loss where I just had enough. It had taken up too much mental space. If I have to just break it down like I would any other skill, what's the simplest solution? What's the solution for this? My name is Samuel, and I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark. I have always had a high hairline, but it wasn't until like 3 years ago that I really started noticing. I have always had like long hair, and and then I would do the classic comb, but almost comb over type thing. But then like three or 2 years ago, I would say that's when I really started noticing that it was getting deeper. And then I would say 2 years ago, so in the mid of 2018, that's when I also started noticing that like the hair here at the tip was also beginning to thin out. And I pretty much went through it all. I had the momentary existential crisis. I started looking into, okay, is there anything I can do, like any vitamins, supplements, or other types of like medical treatments? Looking into hair transplants, basically pretty much, the whole thing. And I think what I remember most from that sort of that whole process, that would probably have to be that I never really talked to anyone about it. It was always something that I always tried to. It was just inside me. I was feeling like my confidence was taking a dive, and I was dealing with insecurity because of it. Because I always associated hair, also like sort of the hairstyle that I would have, I always associated that with attractiveness. So once that sort of, I was, okay, so that might be going away. And I'm thinking like, okay, what the hell am I supposed to do now? I would say probably around 1 year ago, that was when, I don't really know what to say, but it was just like one day I just had enough. It had taken up such a huge part of my life. And I wasn't even able to share it with someone. So it was just something that I was keeping bottled up inside myself. I was feeling terrible. I just had enough, and it took so much energy and resources. And I had I have had shaved my head before, but there was just something different about taking the leap, knowing that okay, this might be sort of the now it's actually for out of necessity.
Yeah, not choice. It's out of because you it's not like you're doing it for fun, right? Yeah, it's because you
exactly. So I just I took the leap. I went out and bought a pair of clippers, and then just shaved it. Once I finally did that, immediately after, and I know this is different for some people, but for me, immediately after, I just felt a huge relief. I was just, okay, it's done. This is what I look like. It's definitely manageable. I feel like I look good. I feel good about myself. And it doesn't take, that was also another thing, like it doesn't take away anything from who I am as a person. It's just my I don't have as much hair as I did when I was young.
Do you think that realization then, when you said it doesn't change who I am as a person, because that is very different to the initial stages when it's first going, where you said like, well, the way I look and stuff is a lot to my appearance. My hair is obviously a big part of that. So at that time, suddenly when you're faced with it going, it feels like it's vitally important, and it feels like that it is such an important factor. But then it's interesting that you say, once you kind of shave it, you realize there's actually loads more to me here, and I don't need that to feel good, do good things. It's a strange realization, isn't it? And I had a very similar one.
It takes up such a huge part, basically, of your entire existence inside your head. And then, like you say, once you let it go, once you finally do the shave, like there's so like everything else is still there. And so that's also why I mentioned the thing with like, it was right around the time where I was really getting into shooting content for my YouTube channel, where I do challenges, talk about personal development, and then also mainly focus on learning new skills. And so it was really also at a time where I was feeling like I had a lot of success with all these small endeavors, whether that be learning how to do a handstand push-up, or learning to play the piano, learning to solve the Rubik's Cube, all of these things that, a lot of them, I always thought, well, that's something for smart people. I was never that good in I guess it would be the equivalent of like secondary school. All of these things, all of a sudden, once I just sat down, started putting in the time and effort, I had a lot of experiences of success with that. I definitely think that helped, with dealing with my hair loss as well, because, I had concrete evidence that there was still so much, like everything else was still there.
Yeah, and this is key, and this is why I was really excited to have this conversation and to hear your thoughts on it, because something big that helped me, get through it and kind of realize the same sort of thing to yourself is, I was out in another country. I was going to university at the time to learn a new language. I was quite into my, working out and things like that. There was a few other, and I would just pick things up and I would just try different things. I was in a space, I think, a lot of people get into in their sort of 20s of self-development. I was reading a lot of different books on different topics. I tried coding. I did that for like 3 or 4 months. And the interesting thing is like, I was just trying new things. And I think it's also okay if you really work at it. And if that after a while doesn't kind of serve you, but you've picked something else up in the whilst doing it, then it's still a good thing. You're still learning, you're still making progress, So I really want to kind of unpack that a little bit more and your thoughts on it. So specifically on how it can help you with something when you're faced with something like losing your hair, which as we mentioned, and I mentioned it in a recent video, and this is just for me, just so we kind of lay a bit of context out there. The look that I had up until the point where my hair was falling out, it's strange, isn't it? You just consider, even though the hair is just one part of you, you just sort of look at it as like a look in general, like the whole look that you have, right?
Yeah.
And,
sure.
I had relatively good success in my life up until that point with the look that I had. So the fact that I was now faced with not having that look forward, and the whole crisis thing that you mentioned is interesting because, I was thinking like, it's going to change drastically. If just one thing changes, I was like, it's going to just completely change the way I look, for the worse. Obviously I was assuming it was going to be for the worse. Right. And so I think that is a big part of the freak out. It's like, I've done all this good stuff looking like this. And I just automatically assumed, well, going forward, it's going to be a disaster because I don't look like this anymore. But then when you're in that phase of like, okay, and I don't know where it comes from, because obviously people can get into quite a slump, quite an unmotivated phase, really consumed by, what focused on the hair loss and worrying about that. So that's just like kind of laying out the foundation, I suppose. I don't know. What are your thoughts on like, I suppose first on how you began to put aside the worries and the fears over the hair, because you said it was quite a focus, started to apply some of that energy into more positive things, and how you sort of built momentum in that. Like you said, you got the YouTube channel going, and how did that then sort of snowball the positivity in those new areas into meaning you kind of had that realization that, hey, I can do this. I just get rid of this. Like, I'm doing all this good stuff. Let's just put that behind me and move on, because that's what I'm all about. I think a huge part of my message on my channel is that, but I think it's good to unpack it so that make it understandable. So just, dude, what are your thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah. So I would say that in the summer of 2019, that was when I started learning how to play the piano. And that was actually at a time in my life, for the most part, I had a pretty good upbringing, but then I also have had some experiences with close family members dealing with severe mental illness, and that sort of flared up, and it really affected me at that point. And so this is like start to mid 2019, and coupled with that, I was super stressed from from school, from work. And then again, also like in the back of my mind, the hair loss thing. I'm going bald. I'm finding gray hairs. Like what the hell is happening? So summer 2019, I just like I'm at the bottom. Like I was feeling horrible, and I every year I've always had this like project. Like I'm gonna learn something new. Like previous years, I had learned Japanese, I had learned Spanish, like different languages. So I always had like a project for each summer. So I was like, okay, it's horrible right now, but I gotta get something to sort of like put my time and effort and energy and focus into. And then my sister, she had an old keyboard laying around, and I was just okay. I always wanted to learn how to play the piano, so I'm just gonna start. And I just started like one note at a time. I started playing, and I started playing much more, and I got really into it. And it was just like I basically put all of my focus and effort into that. Fast forward half a year, I did like a bunch of recordings, like of how I progressed. So I started recording basically from the first time I touched the keyboard, filmed it throughout the course of 6 months. And that was basically like my first video. Okay, so what that whole thing, I was at a horrible place. I started learning the piano. I began feeling better. I had a lot of success with that. That made me sort of think, okay, so I never in my life felt like I had a musical ear. But still, in spite of that, I was actually able to learn an instrument. And again, it's one of these things where when you look at it from the outside, you sort of feel like, oh no, that's only something like for exceptionally gifted or talented people. I could never do that. But again, something like clicked. Okay, I sat down, I put in the time and effort, and I was actually able to, like, I'm not the best at it, but I was actually able to do it pretty proficiently. And that sort of like kicked off the whole idea for the YouTube channel. So, okay, so let me see what else of like skills and things that I've always wanted to learn, but I never got around to, that I always had some excuse for. I'm not good enough, or it will take too long, or like whatever. I always had an excuse for it. What else can I sort of dive into that I want to learn with the hair loss? Because that then coupled in, I feel like, because I sort of saw that as like another thing that I needed to learn to deal with. And there's always, you can always find, for whatever you want to learn, you can always find a bunch of tutorials and people telling you, oh, you can do it this and that way. And so it really just came down to me thinking, like, when I reached that point with the hair loss where I just had enough, it had taken up too much, like sort of too much mental space. It was really just, okay, what's the most, like, if I have to just break it down like I would any other skill, what's the simplest solution? Like, what's the solution for this? And it was just like, well, just shave your head. You start focusing on, because you associate so much with the hair, and then like once it's not there, like start focusing on what other stuff is like makes up the person that you are or potentially could, and once we do that, we also begin to realize that there potentially is so much other stuff, and it might also be something that you never thought that you would have been able to do before. So like you say, sort of fill up the void. Like once you start look actively, I think that's the most important thing. Once you start actively looking for, okay, what other things can I sort of devote my time and energy to? Like you're gonna have a lot. And if it's not like perhaps a personal relationship, or if it's maybe you want to spend more time with your family or your friends, or like school, work, and if not that, then okay, like what have I always wanted to learn perhaps how to skateboard or do tricks on a scooter or like whatever it is. And then you just start putting all of that mental space that you were occupying before with thinking about your hair loss, like start putting that into those types of endeavors. It's double benefits, because first of all, you're filling up, you're focusing on something else, so you're not thinking about you're not thinking about the situation, but you're also having experiences of success, which is crucial, like for confidence, for this like having this feeling of this feeling of, okay, I'm actually capable. I'm capable of doing a lot of things. I have a lot of potential. So you're both filling up the empty space, and you're also realizing the potential that, and that's another thing that's with my channel, or sort of the whole philosophy I have behind that. It's the potential that I think we all pretty much have. And obviously you're going to have people who are more skilled genetically, like someone like LeBron James. Like, obviously he was born to be a basketball player. But I mean, if you want to learn to play basketball, that doesn't mean just because you might not play in the NBA, you could probably still get pretty damn good at it if you practice and put a lot of time and effort. And the same with the piano. I don't have any plans of becoming a concert pianist, but I feel like I'm getting pretty good at it. And it's and it's these like small experiences of success, and you can always start small. Like, it doesn't have to be something grand. I think that's another thing as well, that you always want to, like, okay, so again, the same thing with shaving your head. What's the first step? Always start with that. Like, when you're learning something new, that's the same thing as well. What's the first step? Okay, I have the piano, I have the keyboard in front of me. Just press one note. Great. Then another one. Then after an hour, then you have 10, 20 notes maybe. All right, then you do the same thing again tomorrow. And I don't know if it's, but I feel like it's a bit common sense, but then again, also not, because it's like, once you don't really realize it until you sit down and actually do it, how much of a difference it can make. Yeah.
I think there's actually a bit of a metaphor here, and it really translates perfectly to the whole head shaving thing, because, confidence is built in doing things that you couldn't previously do, or you haven't done before, and this is key, because people, like you said, you thought you weren't capable of doing it, right? Something you thought you weren't going to be able to do, or no, that's too difficult for me. And we often so many times we don't give ourselves enough credit for things that we are capable of or that we can do. And it's honestly just taking that first step and just let the momentum build, and building momentum in these new skills, in things that you thought you couldn't do, translates once again so well to dealing with your hair falling out and this drastic change, or this perceived drastic change in your appearance, because you realize then, oh, I am fully capable of doing a lot more than I was giving myself credit for. And just like the hair, when you shave that off, so many guys just thought, right, I'm going to look so hideous. And you take that action, you realize, hey, actually, it looks all right, or it looks pretty decent, or right, different, and it's going to get some getting used to, but I can work with this, and momentum then builds in that area as well. And it can go way beyond that. Once you've taken care of the hair situation, that is like one of the ultimate confidence boosters for a man,
for sure.
When he's losing his hair. And this is why, when I say things like, listen, if you really think about it, this can be a very good thing. Not many people get this dose of adversity. Well, actually, a lot of people get this dose of adversity, but it's one that isn't going to cause you, it's not going to, you're not disabled, or you're still fully capable of doing all the things that you want to do. So it's a tough pill to swallow, but once you have taken care of it, you realize, wow, from going from something that I was so down about, really beating myself up over, just complete lack of confidence, and I've handled it. You know, it may have taken me years. It may have taken me different, you know, trying different things out, like in shampoos, whatever, right? Different solutions. But I finally tackled it, and it just makes you feel so like, right, what else can I do? And that's why I love, you know, how you're describing learning these new skills, and it's really just giving ourselves more credit, you know, than we currently are. And I think, that confidence can come out from just taking action, you know, just taking simple actions and letting those build. So, dude, no, it's fantastic. I completely agree.
Yeah. You know, we learn that we are capable of taking control by taking control. Like, so that first step in whatever it is, like, that's taking control. And learning that you're capable of taking control gives you confidence. That whole sort of dilemma and crisis, you know, with the hair loss, you know, I think that's also sort of connected to our sense of masculinity. And, you know, that's a core trait of masculinity, you know, being able to take control of a difficult, like what might seem like a difficult situation. You know, it's obviously subjective, but my personal opinion is that, like, very few men, if any at all, like exist out there who look sufficiently unattractive with a bald head to actually warrant spending like that much time and energy worrying about it, spending thousands, perhaps thousands and thousands of dollars on expensive treatments, products, you know, so on and so forth. And, you know, obviously if it works for some, you know, that's also really great. But I think it's also just really important to say it, you know, for people who, you know, who obviously, like, most people can't just afford, like, and go to Turkey and get an expensive hair transplant, you know. And it's like, so also just like saying that, look, it's okay. It's not like you don't have to, like, you can actually have it pretty good just by working with what you have. And, you know, I think it's a cool hairstyle, you know. You're made up of so much more than just your hair.